So this is the second part of today's lesson. We're going to work on graphing exponential growth and exponential decay and their inverses. So looking at this first slide, we're going to look at exponential growth. So I tried to put the work in the chart so that you could see this. It would be a good idea to make sure that you copy this chart into your notebook. And I've made sure to point out the y-intercept for you. Remember that anything raised to the 0 power is going to be equal to 1. So you've got your x and your y values. And so when you graph that, here's the graph for your table. And you have, you can compare your table. I would probably go ahead and give a quick sketch of this graph as well. And your domain and range. So now notice that the only thing that's been changed in this one is that the starting point now is at 2 instead of at 1. So when you look at your y-intercept, your you're going to intercept your graph at 2 on the y-axis. So this is another one to copy into your notebook. And this is growth again because that b is 3, which is greater than 1. Here is the graph that goes with that, and you can see that this one has a much steeper incline. And let's go back to that again real quick. Your domain again is all real numbers, and your range is your y's are greater than 0. So transformations of exponential functions, you're going to look at a times the quantity b raised to the exponent x minus h, that quantity, plus k. And just like the other transformations that you've had, this h is going to move it left or right, the k is going to move it up or down, and remember that this b is what's going to determine growth or decay, and that a really is your starting amount or your initial amount. So looking at this chart of one that's going to be transformed again, I would put this in your notebook, is you're looking at 3, instead of just raised to the x power, it's going to be raised to the x minus 2. So this should translate that 2 units to the right. And then here's your chart that should show you all of those changes. You still have growth. Here's your y-intercept up here, very, very close to 0, 0. And here's the graph that goes with that. So let's take a look here. Here is an exponential decay. Again, put this in your notebook. So it's exponential decay because we see that the b is between 0 and 1. This minus 1 on the very end tells us it's been shifted down 1. So when we look at the graph, you'll be able to see that your y-intercept instead of being 0, 1 now is 0 because it was moved down 1. So when you look at that graph, you can see that it's coming from the other direction as well. And your domain is still all real numbers. And your y is going to be greater than -1. So the inverse of an exponential function is called a logarithm. And this is what you do, this is how you find the logarithm, because it's the inverse. So with this chart, if we're going to look at f of x is equal to 5 raised to the x power, its growth, because the b is greater than 1, your y-intercept is still at 0, 1, and all of the work that needs to be done, you need to work through those, that middle column so that you understand how to make those tables or where those numbers are coming from. So next, remember you can pause this video and copy over what you need to have. So next slide is going to be, we're just going to take that chart from the previous page and switch the x and the y values to get the x-intercept, or to get the values to plot. You're now, instead of a y-intercept, you have an x-intercept. And so when we put both these graphs on the same graph for the exponential function and its inverse, the logarithm. Notice that you can see where there's that reflection over the line y equals x, and the domain and the ranges switch, which makes sense if you're going to switch your x and y's to get the logarithm, or to get the inverse, you're going to switch the x, and the domain and the range should also switch. So make sure that you've copied down these graphs, sketched out these functions, and take some time to think this through. I'm trying to make this video short, and you have some classwork problems that are to be worked through and then glued in your notebook, whatever the next page is, guys. Just make sure you label it in your table of contents. And your homework then is to be completed by tomorrow in class. So I will see you then, and remember, watch the video again if you've got questions and work through the problems. Don't just stare at it and not process the information. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.